Dylan Lonergan and Grayson James looking a little rusty to start off the season, but I'll explain why I think they're going to be totally fine by the end of camp.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I am your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network, and one of the leading college football sites on Boston College. If you are looking for daily Boston College news, analysis, and scoops, I've been covering Boston College for over 10 years. You are in the right place. We are a free podcast available 5 days a week on your wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. I hope you subscribe there. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, the ACC media poll comes out, and of course, BC is disrespected. I'll explain why I think they're going to finish higher. Q Hutchins and Lewis Bond both get Player of the Year votes. What's up with that? And could they live up to that hype? I'll get into that as well. And let's bring it up with some concerns about the quarterbacks. Now, you know, it's practice number 2. Thursday was practice number 2. Friday, they're off. And the same reports that so my writer, Mike Sidley, was there. And if you read his practice report after practice number 2, it reads very similar to what I said after practice number 1, which was Grayson James and Dylan Lonergan both looked pretty good in the middle intermediate kind of passing. But when they went deep, it was a mess. So, of course, it's social media world. People overreact to this. Oh my gosh, both of our quarterbacks are going to be bad. What's going on? Is it the wide receiver's fault? Whose fault is this? And I get it. I'm going to tell you, for instance, some of the passes, both quarterbacks did this when I watched them on Wednesday. They went deep multiple times. And I think, as I said on yesterday's show, I think they were by design. They went deep and they weren't even close. Like some of those passes were 5 yards ahead of their intended targets. You know, their wide receiver couldn't get under it. It was too far ahead. They weren't good throws. Sounds like the same thing happened on Thursday. Now, the big question is this something to worry about? And I say no. This is not a big deal. There's a few reasons. First of all, it's practice number 2. Everyone needs to take a breath, right? They're still installing their offense. They're still doing a lot of, basic stuff and communication and timing. That's where things are going to start, right? And you can easily do the short intermediate stuff right out of the gate. You should be able to. And that would be a bigger issue if they can't do that. Tommy Castellanos didn't last year. But this year, the fact that they're doing that and then going deeper, and that's where the issue is, I think that isn't that big of a deal. With time, you're going to get more and more reps. Both of these guys are getting most of the reps. Shaker Reisick is not out there. And this guy Enzo from Monmouth, not really thinking he's going to be doing too much other than being a scout team kind of quarterback. It's really those two. And that's really what it should be. Your quarterback battle is between your 1 and 2. We don't know who's what. And they're going to be out there a lot. So those deep passes to Reed Harris, they're going to come. They just need to practice more. The more time, and they're going to, my gosh, you look at their practice schedule, they're going to be out there a lot over the next couple of weeks. And this team works hard too, because, after practice, I'm waiting in the press room for some of these guys, and they're coming in late because practice may be ending, but they're, talking to a coach, working on a drill, banging out an issue that they had. It's all there. Okay. So I don't have any issues yet. Timing will come with practice. The other piece that came back up from the first practice of summer, our second practice of summer, is continuing a theme. This is when you start to notice what your team is going to be about. And they're still in shells, so there's bigger pieces with linebackers and defensive linemen tackling things like that. We're going to have to wait to see where that's at. But I'm here to tell you, this secondary continues to impress. And it was the second practice in a row that Sire Torrance had a huge day. And the second practice in a row that the press conference ended with either a player or coach mentioning him. So yesterday we had Bill O'Brien come out of the blue and just talk about how good Sire Torrance looked this summer. Today it was Reed Harris, one of their best wide receivers, saying, this is a guy that gets all over the field. He's, a dynamite player. And so this is the theme here. I don't know what's going to happen with how much of a role he's going to have, but he's a dog. This is a guy that's going to be out there making big plays. If you watched what Sire Torrance can do, he can do a lot. So he's one. And I'm not going to talk about him because I talked about him a lot yesterday. But it's the other guys around him. Carter Davis, another big practice. You have KP Price. Cam Martinez had a good practice. Max Tucker. Amari Jackson. I don't have the details on him yet. I've seen him out there. I don't see him practicing, but he's out there. But you even have the younger guys. The younger guys, during the spring, I started noticing it between Najita Sankala, TJ Green. Sorry, those two guys. But, now you have Ashton Cunningham, Ray Sykes. There's a bunch of guys. This is what, I sat back today and thought to myself, yeah, you've got some players out there. But what really sticks out to me is the depth there, too. Like, you're going to go in your secondary with probably Max Tucker, and as long as he's ready, Amari Jackson as your two starters. You're either going to have Cam Martinez or Sire Torrance in the slot. You then have three safeties that you can use anywhere between Omar Thornton, Carter Davis, and KP Price. You have all those guys. Where does Asher McShane go? He started the entire second half of last year. You don't have a spot for him yet. TJ Green looks pretty good. Like, you have all this good. Isaiah Ferris had another good practice. You have a lot of guys that can play, and that's going to help you because if you get, Amari Jackson went down last year with an injury. You lost him. You now have guys that can step in, and you can cycle guys in and out if you need to too. That's always a good thing to have, is to have that depth. And that's what's sticking out to me when I'm watching them going, okay, this is not just one guy making a ton of plays out here. This is an entire unit, an entire room that seems just locked in. Like, Corey Robinson has a group here. And yeah, he's not the guy that put this group together, but they're very sound technique. Their technique and just the way that they run their coverage is just very, very, it's very good. Can't think of the word I wanted to use, but it's precision. That's what I would call it. It's precision. They're right there. And so it was a second practice of more of that. Now, I do want to say that when you're watching practices in the summer or even in the spring, defense usually comes along first because they just play and pin back their ears and try to make plays. The offense is trying to figure things out. The offense will speed things up more. That's something to be aware of. It's not like the defense is just going to lock down the offense all off, summer. The offense will make plays. Once Turbo's allowed to actually run the football, you'll probably see him make some plays because he's gonna make some plays. So I think that's just one last little warning. Now, for practice this weekend, Saturday I'll be there, Sunday I'll be there. Man, you guys want insider? You got it right here. We're going to be there for everything. I'm going to have my thoughts on everything, and we'll get into it. And just one other quick little note. I've seen, and this is not a knock on the guys that do it. It's my perspective. I've seen some folks charting and other sites charting how each quarterback is doing. Over the last two practices, Grayson James has been 18 out of 30, while Dylan Lonergan's 12 out of 25. Please take that with a grain of salt, because those numbers are not as accurate as you think. Because the numbers they're not making up numbers, but you're not seeing the details here, right? Yeah, Grayson James may be 75% passing against this what could be the second team defense and struggles against the first. Those numbers don't show that. So I know some of you guys see that kind of stuff and oh, that's the opinion I want to make. Yeah, see those numbers? I haven't been there, but I will see that. As someone who's been there, both of these guys go against what would be the first team defense and the second team defense. Those numbers that you're seeing don't show any of that. So just be wary of what you're reading because it's not a complete story. Just had to get that out there because I know some people love to see that kind of stuff on Twitter and react to it. And so Graham Dietz, I think, and Kevin Stone, I think, are the two guys that are doing it. Nothing wrong with it. I just don't agree with how to perceive what they're doing. I have a different reaction to it. And you can agree with what they're doing too, and that's fun too for the summer, but that's my reaction to that. Now, in a moment, let's get into the end of ACC Media Days where there was some voting going on. And the MVP or the Player of the Year voting came in, and two BC players, two I would have never picked, not to knock on them, got nominated, got multiple votes. And I want to talk about why in just a moment. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether they're workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration is where it all starts, and that's where Drip Drop comes in. When I'm on top of my hydration, I notice everything works better. My energy, my mood, my mind, even my skin, but getting enough fluids every day isn't always easy. That's why I've been loving Drip Drop. I just had a berry one right before this recording. Gave me the energy and just that feeling of being hydrated. It just feels good. Like I know I'm doing great things for my body, and I know Drip Drop is doing the great, and it tastes good. It tastes like you're having like a really fun drink, but it's just Drip Drop. It's just to add to your water. And right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. You heard that right. Head to dripdrop.com and use promo code Locked On College. That's dripdrop.com. Promo code Locked On College for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits you hard. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black. To my everydayers out there that have listened to every day of Locked On Boston College over the last couple of months, it feels like a relief, doesn't it? Now that we're talking about watching guys practice, watching what's going on, having analysis from an insider that's been there. I think it's probably it's a great feeling for me because now I have good stuff for you, but I'm sure you guys are enjoying this too. And I can't wait to talk more about practice as we continue. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button before you head out. Now, taking a step back, the ACC Media Days happened last week, and we got, the press conference, but we also the media vote for their finalists, their all ACC team, and then Player of the Year. For all ACC team, BC got a whopping 0 players nominated, which, you know what, not surprised. If you look at BC's roster, and yeah, there's guys that could step up, but right now, like who on that roster right now is a guy you're saying, man, they're already all ACC, because that's what the media sees. Like they're going to go for Carson Beck and Antonio Williams and those types of players because those are the guys they see. They know who they are. They don't know Turbo yet. Lewis Bond, I know Graham Dietz was saying he voted for him. That's fine, but he's not really I don't think he's a big enough player to get above some of these other guys. It's just the way things work. Great player, but that's just not how it works. But what stunned me was when the Player of the Year voting happened. I believe Cade Klubnik was the winner for the preseason All ACC Player of the Year. 2 BC players made the list, which stunned me because if you're making nobody onto the All ACC list, who is getting in? And it's not just BC writers voting them in because one of these guys had 2 votes. And I can only think of 2 guys. I think Trevor and Graham are the 2 guys that made it down there. And I would bet you Trevor didn't vote for a BC guy. He's usually pretty, even keeled on who he votes for. So it was interesting to see this because Quintavious Hutchins got 2 votes for ACC Player of the Year. Now, I love Q. I think Q is, in for a big year. We spoke to him at practice on Wednesday, and he talked about his journey, which is pretty interesting if you don't know it. He was recruited out of Alabama. I think it was Hoover High School, I think he came from, as a tight end. And then he switched positions. He went over from tight end to edge, but he was mostly just a special teamer under Jeff Hafley for a couple of years. But I remember Hafley talking about him. I know Hafley really liked him. And then He became a part-time player like 2 years ago to the end of last year where he became a full-time player, and now he's like the leader of the edge rushers. And basically you're like one of your big hopes for pass rush coming into the season. So to see him get votes, and I guess maybe folks are having a lot of faith that Tim Lewis is going to transform him like they did with Donovan Ezeraku. Because remember, Ezeraku the year before, he had like 2.5, 3 sacks. Q Hutchins this last year had 3.5 sacks. So if they can get that motor going with Q and getting him going, maybe he could become the next big pass rusher. Talking to Q, he doesn't see it that way. He thinks it's more of a team. He's not Donovan Ezeraku, but hey, he can be modest too. I was just so curious, like who two people in the ACC world looked at Boston College and instead of picking Carson Beck, who is obviously a very good player for a variety of reasons, Cade Klubnik, Antonio Williams, Kevin Jennings. There's a lot of different players you could have voted for. To pick Q, it was just very kind of out of left field. And I really would love just to find those two people and be like, tell me about it. What is it about Q's game that you see that you really want to see him? You could see him doing this? Like, I would say, I feel like there's a chance that by the end of this year, he could be all ACC. I wouldn't bet on it, but I still I think right now, like a reasonable goal for Q, he had 3.5 sacks last year, something like 7 or 8 sacks. I could see him doing that. That would be a solid year for him. Do I see him doing 16.5 like Ezeraku? Probably not. But 7 or 8, that would be a pretty good year for him. So he was one. The other was Lewis Bond. Now, I'm guessing Graham, again, love Graham. I'm not bashing him in it. He does great work doing what he does. But I was saying, I saw him put him as an all ACC vote over some guys I thought probably were more worthy of it. But that's whatever. It's all preseason stuff, whatever. Bond has, one vote as well. Now, Lewis Bond is a good player. He was top 5 in the ACC in catches last year, but I don't see him as a wide receiver that's going to elevate everything around him and make everyone so much better. Again, I bring up Antonio Williams. That's a guy who does that. You look at some of the guys that like maybe Miami or Florida State have, Squirrel White or whatever. They're going to do that. Bond is just solid. He's a very good player. Could he be all ACC? Sure. Because I could see him, and I said this on an earlier episode, I could see him finishing the year top 3 in the ACC in catches because he's just a volume guy, tough as nails. He gets out there, he does his thing. That's what he does. But is he enough to grab multiple all ACC or ACC of the week wide receiver awards and lead the conference in touchdowns? That's going to be a tougher pull for him. That's my predictions of how things are going to work out. But he also had a vote. So it was 3 voters out there voting for Boston College. And that was it was interesting. And so that kind of wraps up everything from that piece. Now, in a moment, the ACC writers also voted on where BC falls in their all ACC preseason poll. And it's about what you expect. We'll get into what that means in just a moment. Game Time makes concert tickets easy to get. We've all been there. Logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with stress or ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endlessly scrolling, trying to find the best deals, use Game Time's zone deals to pick the best seats in your section for you. Again, I go to Woo Sox games. They have their zone deals for finding the best seats in Polar Park. I've been able to use it to find group seats. It's been great. Now you can take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets and game tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black. And if you're looking for another great show, check out Locked On College Football, hosted by Spencer McLaughlin. I was listening to it. He had on great guests, all three segments, talking about I was listening to one that had like USC, Michigan, and then UNC potentially leaving the ACC, all in one show. It's just like my show where it's 25 minutes or so. You can find that on YouTube or if you get your podcasts. Now, when we're talking about the ACC Media Days, one of the other passage of time, it's part of the calendar, is the ACC Media Preseason Poll. And of course, Clemson's number one. They're going to be probably top 2 or 3 in the country anyway, so not a surprise there. But Boston College, they finished in the poll 13th. I have it on the graphic there as 12th. It's actually 13th. Syracuse is 12th. So I'm here to say they're not going to finish 13th. In fact, Syracuse being 12 is ridiculous because if you've looked at Syracuse's schedule, they have a top 5 difficult schedule, and I don't know who they have as a quarterback yet. So I'm not sure why anyone would pick Syracuse other than they were a flashy team last year. That's usually what we get. Also, Florida State with Tommy Castellanos. Love that they're 7th in the conference with 4 people voting for them to win the conference. I will eat my hat if Thomas Castellanos wins the ACC. I'm wondering who those 4 people are, and I bet you they cover a team that rhymes with the Bleminoles. Yep. So, Boston College, this is just part of the game. This is what we deal with every single year. Ever since I followed along from the Tom Coughlin days to the Tom O'Brien days, BC never gets respect ever. And it's always they're put at the bottom because they're Boston College and they don't do anything and blah, 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 with same stuff we hear every year. But then as long as the coaching staff has them in the right spot, they overperform. They did it last year. They did it a couple times during Hafley's time. It's what they do. Okay. They may not be the top of the conference, but they certainly aren't going to be the bottom. That I feel confident with. When you go back over the last 15 years, you have a year under Spaziani, a year under Adazio, and a year under Hafley that were just terrible. Every other year, they're just and this has been the issue, they've just been mediocre. 7 wins, 6 wins consistently. Maybe this is the year that they change that. But even if they're mediocre, they're going to be better than 13th in the conference. They're behind someone else. Someone else voted Virginia Tech to win the ACC, which I love. But they're behind Virginia Tech. They're behind Syracuse, Pitt, teams they could beat. It'll be interesting to see how they do. So I wanted to say this. Polls are polls. I saw someone ask the staff today the players today if they read where they put them, which of course they say they don't. But they do. Many of them do. Because they want a little bit of that juice that gets them going, knowing that there's disrespect from the media for them. So I think they'll be higher. Just what I think. I think there's enough talent on this team. I'm getting this feeling this defense is going to be sneaky good, folks. I think if this defense is sneaky good in that offense, as long as by 3 weeks from now I'm talking about how the offense is getting better, they're going to be better than 13th. They really are. They're just going to be better. All right. We'll be back on Monday for another show. I'll be talking about my what I saw at practice on Saturday and Sunday. We'll get into everything going on there. Maybe we'll get into next week at some basketball recruiting because BC's in on a couple 4-stars I think we should be talking about. And we'll have a whole lot more. Follow along with me on Twitter at AJBlack247. I'm available at Instagram at Eagle Insider. I put my Locked On stuff there as well. And then you can check me out on TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads. I'm everywhere. Just hit that subscribe button. It does help people find us. And make sure you follow along with us on YouTube or we get your podcast. YouTube's nice because I can see how many people are following me. And, that does help the algorithm a lot too. So make sure you do that. And I'll see you all again on Monday for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.